Sarah Martinez had always been different. While other girls her age were playing with dolls or gossiping about boys, she was in her grandfather's garage, learning how to field strip an M1 Garand rifle. Her grandfather, a World War II veteran who had fought in the Pacific Theater, noticed something special in his granddaughter's steady hands and unwavering focus. "You've got the gift, Mija," he would tell her as she reassembled the weapon with practiced precision. "Some people are born to protect others. I can see it in your eyes." Sarah's childhood was spent between two worlds. Her mother wanted her to be a typical girl, encouraging dance classes and shopping trips. But every weekend, Sarah escaped to her grandfather's small ranch outside San Antonio, where she learned skills that would later prove invaluable. He taught her to shoot, to track, to move silently through brush, and most importantly, to never give up when others counted you out. By age 12, Sarah could outshoot most adults at the local gun range. Her grandfather entered her in junior marksmanship competitions, where she consistently dominated against competitors twice her age. The trophies lined her bedroom shelves, but what mattered more was the confidence she gained with each perfect shot. High school brought new challenges. Sarah excelled academically while lettering in track and cross country. Her coach, a former Marine, recognized her natural athleticism and mental toughness. He pushed her harder than other students, knowing she could handle it. Sarah thrived under pressure, often running extra miles after official practice ended. "Martinez, you've got something most people will never have," Coach Williams told her after she broke the school record in the 5K. "You don't just compete against others. You compete against impossible." During her senior year, military recruiters visited the school. The Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines all set up booths in the gymnasium. Sarah walked past each table, politely accepting brochures, but nothing felt right. Then she spotted a small display tucked in the corner. A Navy recruiter sat alone, surrounded by pictures of ships and submarines. But what caught Sarah's attention was a single photograph tucked behind the others. The image showed figures emerging from dark water onto a beach, their faces painted black, weapons ready. The caption read simply, "Naval Special Warfare." "Interested in the SEALs?" the recruiter asked, noticing her stare. Sarah had heard whispers about the Navy SEALs, the elite warriors who operated in shadows and silence. She knew they were considered the most elite fighting force in the world, with training so brutal that most men couldn't survive it. "Can women become SEALs?" she asked. The recruiter shifted uncomfortably. "Well, the program isn't currently open to women, but things change. The Navy is always evolving." Sarah took every piece of literature the recruiter offered. That night, she researched everything she could find about the SEALs. She read about their legendary training, their impossible missions, their brotherhood forged in shared suffering. The more she learned, the more certain she became. This was her calling. She enlisted in the Navy immediately after graduation, despite her mother's tears and her father's concerns. Her grandfather understood. As he hugged her goodbye at the airport, he pressed something into her hand. It was his old compass from the war, worn smooth by decades of use. "When you lose your way, this will always point you home," he said. "But remember, Mija, true north isn't always the easy direction." Boot camp at Great Lakes Naval Training Center was designed to break civilians and rebuild them as sailors. Sarah excelled from day one. While other recruits struggled with physical training, she dominated every event. When others complained about the food or the harsh treatment from drill instructors, Sarah remained focused on her ultimate goal. Her company commander, Senior Chief Petty Officer Jackson, noticed her exceptional performance early. He had trained thousands of recruits over 2 decades, and something about Martinez reminded him of the special operations candidates he had encountered during his career. "Martinez, fall out," he ordered one afternoon after physical training. Sarah approached, wondering if she had done something wrong. "I've been watching you," Jackson said. "You've got potential beyond the regular Navy. Have you considered special programs?" "I want to be a SEAL, Senior Chief." Jackson's expression didn't change, but Sarah caught something in his eyes. Surprise, maybe even respect. "That's not possible right now, but there are other paths. Get yourself into a rating that supports special operations. Learn everything you can, stay ready." Sarah took his advice, requesting assignment to Navy intelligence specialist training. The schooling was challenging, requiring her to master complex computer systems, communications protocols, and analysis techniques. but she also used her free time to prepare for the future she envisioned. Every morning before reveille, she ran 5 miles. Every evening after duty, she hit the gym, focusing on functional fitness rather than just strength. She studied every manual she could find about special operations, learning tactics, techniques, and procedures that weren't part of her official training. Her instructors noticed her dedication. Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez, who oversaw the intelligence program, pulled her aside during her final week of training. "Martinez, your test scores are exceptional, and your physical fitness reports are off the charts. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?" "Supporting special operations, ma'am, whatever capacity the Navy needs." Rodriguez nodded slowly. "There's a billet opening at Naval Special Warfare Development Group. It's intelligence support, but you'd be working directly with SEAL teams. Interested?" Sarah's heart raced, but she kept her voice steady. "Yes, ma'am." 3 months later, Sarah found herself at Naval Station Norfolk, assigned to DEVGRU. She was one of only a handful of women working directly with the most elite SEAL teams in the Navy. Her job was to provide intelligence briefings, analyze enemy communications, and support mission planning. For the first time, she was surrounded by the warriors she had dreamed of joining. She watched them prepare for missions, studied their methods, and learned their culture. They were impressive, but they weren't superhuman. They were skilled, disciplined, and mentally tough, but Sarah recognized those same qualities in herself. The SEALs initially treated her with polite professionalism, nothing more. She was support staff, useful but separate from their brotherhood. Sarah didn't mind. She was there to learn and prove herself, not to make friends. Her breakthrough came during a complex mission planning session. The team was preparing for a high-risk operation in hostile territory, and the intelligence picture was incomplete. Sarah had been analyzing intercepted communications for weeks, looking for patterns others had missed. "The target building has 3 floors, but there's something wrong with the blueprint," she told the briefing room. "The interior dimensions don't match the exterior measurements." The SEAL team leader, Lieutenant Commander Stone, studied the architectural plans. "What are you thinking, Martinez?" "Hidden room, sir, probably between the 2nd and 3rd floors. The communications intercepts mention the sanctuary, but never specify a location within the building. I think that's where your primary target will be." Stone examined her analysis, cross-referencing her findings with other intelligence sources. After several minutes, he looked up with grudging respect. "Outstanding work, Martinez. This changes our entire approach." The mission was a complete success, with the team locating their target exactly where Sarah had predicted. Word of her contribution spread throughout the SEAL community, and her reputation began to grow. She was no longer just another intelligence analyst. She was someone who could think like an operator. But Sarah wanted more than respect from the sidelines. Every day, she watched the SEALs train, deploy, and return with stories of missions that mattered. She was making a difference, but it wasn't enough. She needed to be in the fight, not just supporting it from behind a computer screen. The opportunity came sooner than expected, though not in the way she had imagined. The call came at 300 hours on a Tuesday morning. Sarah was deep in sleep when her phone buzzed with an encrypted message. "Report to Building 47 immediately. Dress for field training." Building 47 housed the Special Operations Fitness Center and training facilities. Sarah had been inside many times for briefings, but never for training. She dressed quickly in physical training gear and made the short drive through the darkened base. Lieutenant Commander Stone waited for her outside the building, along with Chief Petty Officer Mike Torres, one of the most respected SEAL instructors on the base. Both men looked serious in the dim glow of the security lights. "Martinez, we have a situation," Stone began without preamble. "Intelligence suggests a high-value target is moving through a specific corridor in Syria. We need someone inside to provide real-time assessment and communications relay." "Sir, I can coordinate that from here," Sarah replied, confused why this required a 3 a.m. meeting. Torres stepped forward. "The insertion point is 40 miles from the nearest friendly forces. The operative would need to infiltrate on foot, establish a hide site, and remain in position for up to 72 hours. This isn't a desk job." Sarah's pulse quickened as she began to understand what they were suggesting. "The operator needs advanced combat skills, expert marksmanship, and the ability to move undetected through hostile territory," Stone continued. They also need to understand intelligence protocols and communication systems well enough to provide real-time analysis under extreme stress. Sir, are you asking me to? We're asking if you think you're capable, Tors interrupted. This mission requires someone who can shoot like a sniper, move like a ghost, and think like an analyst. That's a unique skill set. Sarah felt her grandfather's compass in her pocket, the weight of it somehow comforting. She thought about every hour of training, every mile run, every perfect shot she had fired since childhood. When do we start? She asked. What followed was the most intense week of Sarah's life. Tors put her through a compressed version of SEAL selection screening, testing her physical capabilities, mental resilience, and technical skills. She ran obstacle courses designed to break candidates, swam in full gear until her lungs burned, and navigated land navigation courses in complete darkness. The shooting evaluation was scheduled for Friday morning. Sarah arrived at the range before dawn, her rifle cleaned and zeroed from the previous day's practice. Tors waited with a group of SEAL instructors and team members who had come to watch the intelligence analyst attempt their standards. 15 shots, 15 targets at varying distances, Tors explained. Wind is gusting from the northwest at 12 to 15 knots. Temperature is dropping, which will affect your ballistics. You have 3 minutes to study the course, then you shoot. Miss one target and we find someone else for this mission. Sarah studied the range through her scope. The targets were positioned at distances from 200 to 800 meters, some partially concealed behind cover, others exposed for only seconds at a time through automated systems. The wind was indeed challenging, requiring her to calculate holds and leads she hadn't practiced extensively. She thought about her grandfather teaching her to shoot in the Texas wind, how he had emphasized reading environmental conditions rather than just memorizing sight pictures. She remembered his words, "The rifle is just a tool, Mija. The real weapon is your mind." Sarah settled into her shooting position, controlling her breathing and heart rate. The first target appeared at 300 meters, a standard silhouette. She fired, watching the bullet impact center mass. The automated system moved to the next target before she could celebrate. Target after target fell to her precise shots. At 600 meters, a figure appeared for only 2 seconds behind partial cover. Sarah's bullet found its mark just as the target disappeared. The watching SEALs began to murmur among themselves, but she blocked out their voices, focusing entirely on her breathing and sight picture. The 13th shot was the most challenging, an 800-meter target in a strong crosswind. Sarah held her breath, calculated the wind drift and bullet drop, and squeezed the trigger. Through her scope, she saw the hit indicator flash green. 2 targets remained. The 14th appeared at close range, only 150 meters, but moving laterally at significant speed. Sarah tracked the movement, led the target appropriately, and fired. Another hit. The final target was a test of both marksmanship and nerves. It appeared at 700 meters for exactly 1 second, then disappeared for 5 seconds, then reappeared at a different location. Sarah would need to acquire, aim, and fire in that 1-second window with no opportunity for adjustment. The target flashed into view. Sarah's crosshairs found the center of mass instantly. She fired without conscious thought, her muscle memory and training taking over. The target dropped immediately. Silence fell over the range. 15 shots, 15 hits, under the most challenging conditions the instructors could create. Sarah remained in her shooting position, hardly believing what she had just accomplished. Chief Tors walked downrange to verify the targets personally. Each one showed clean hits in the vital zones. When he returned, his expression was unreadable. "Outstanding marksmanship, Martinez," he said, "but shooting is only one skill required for this mission." Over the next 2 days, Sarah underwent evaluations in close quarters combat, tactical movement, equipment handling, and stress inoculation. The instructors pushed her to physical and mental exhaustion, then tested her ability to perform complex tasks under pressure. During the final exercise, she was required to infiltrate a mock enemy compound, gather specific intelligence, and exfiltrate without detection. The course was populated with role players trained to simulate enemy guards and civilian populations. Sarah would be armed only with training weapons and her intelligence skills. The infiltration took place in the early morning darkness. Sarah had studied satellite photos of the facility, memorized guard rotations, and identified potential entry and exit routes. but intelligence estimates could only be so accurate. The real test would be her ability to adapt when the plan inevitably changed. She approached the compound from the north, moving slowly through dense vegetation. Her face was painted with camouflage, and she wore specially designed gear that minimized noise and light signature. Every step was calculated to avoid detection. The first challenge came immediately. A guard post that intelligence had indicated was unmanned was actually occupied by 2 role players. Sarah adjusted her route, finding a drainage culvert that allowed her to bypass the position entirely. Inside the compound, she navigated between buildings, using shadows and timing to avoid patrols. Her target was a specific building containing documents she needed to photograph and communications equipment she needed to monitor. The building was locked, but Sarah had learned lock-picking from a SEAL instructor who specialized in covert entry. The lock yielded to her tools within 30 seconds. Inside, she quickly located the target materials and began her work. The documents contained information written in Arabic, which Sarah could read at an intermediate level thanks to language training she had pursued on her own time. She photographed each page with a specialized camera, ensuring she captured the information completely. While monitoring the communications equipment, she discovered an unexpected bonus: real-time enemy communications that hadn't appeared in the intelligence briefing. Sarah recorded the transmissions and used her analysis skills to decode their tactical significance. Her exfiltration was compromised when a patrol returned early from their scheduled route. Sarah found herself trapped in the target building with enemy role players approaching from both ends of the corridor outside. She had seconds to decide her next move. Rather than attempt to fight her way out, which would violate her mission parameters, Sarah climbed into the building's ventilation system. The space was cramped and uncomfortable, but it allowed her to move above the searchers undetected. She remained hidden for 20 minutes while the building was thoroughly searched. When the role players finally left, convinced the building was clear, Sarah dropped down and completed her exfiltration through a window that faced away from the primary patrol routes. The exercise concluded with Sarah successfully reaching her extraction point with all required intelligence intact. She had completed the mission without being detected and had gathered additional information beyond the original requirements. Chief Torres was waiting at the extraction point with Lieutenant Commander Stone and several other SEAL team leaders. Their expressions were serious, giving no indication of whether Sarah had passed or failed their evaluation. "Debrief in Conference Room Alpha in 1 hour," Torres said simply. "Clean up and report in dress uniform." Sarah spent the hour in nervous anticipation, replaying every moment of the evaluation and wondering if she had missed something critical. She had performed well, but she knew these men set standards higher than any other military unit in the world. When she entered the conference room, she found not just Torres and Stone, but Admiral Patricia Hawkins, the commanding officer of Naval Special Warfare Group. Sarah snapped to attention, surprised by the presence of such senior leadership. "At ease, Martinez," Admiral Hawkins said. "Please take a seat." Sarah sat stiffly, waiting for the verdict that would determine whether she would deploy on the mission or return to her regular duties as an intelligence analyst. "Your performance this week has been exceptional," the Admiral continued. "But we need to discuss something more significant than just this single mission." Admiral Hawkins opened a thick folder and spread several documents across the conference table. Sarah could see her photograph clipped to personnel files, training records, and evaluation reports from the past week. "Martinez, what I'm about to tell you is classified at the highest levels," the Admiral began. "The Secretary of Defense has authorized a pilot program to evaluate female candidates for naval special warfare training. This program is not public knowledge, and its existence cannot be discussed outside this room." Sarah felt her heart stop. This was beyond anything she had imagined possible. "The program will select 3 candidates for a modified basic underwater demolition SEAL training course," Admiral Hawkins continued. "The candidates will undergo the same physical and mental challenges as male students, with no modifications or reduced standards." Chief Torres leaned forward. "Martinez, your performance this week suggests you might be capable of succeeding where others have failed, but I need to be absolutely clear about what you're considering." Lieutenant Commander Stone opened another folder. Bud S has a failure rate approaching 80% among male candidates who have trained their entire lives for this moment. The program is designed to identify individuals who can perform impossible tasks under unimaginable pressure. The first phase alone eliminates more than half the class, Torres added. 6 months of physical training that pushes human endurance beyond normal limits. Hell Week, where you sleep less than 4 hours over 5 days while conducting constant training evolutions. Most students voluntarily withdraw. Admiral Hawkins studied Sarah's face carefully. This isn't about proving a political point, Martinez. If you fail, it sets back the cause of women in special operations by years. If you succeed, you open doors for future generations. But if you can't handle the pressure, you need to say so now. Sarah thought about her grandfather's stories of war, about the courage required to face impossible odds. She thought about every person who had told her that some dreams were beyond her reach simply because of her gender. "Ma'am, I understand the stakes," she replied. "I want to try." "Then report to Coronado in 2 weeks," Admiral Hawkins said. "You'll begin pre-Bud S training with Class 347. Your classmates will not know about the pilot program. As far as they're concerned, you're just another candidate trying to earn the Trident." The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of preparation and anxiety. Sarah completed her mission in Syria successfully, providing crucial intelligence that led to the capture of a significant terrorist operative. But her mind was constantly focused on what lay ahead in California. She called her grandfather the night before leaving for Coronado, needing to hear his voice before beginning the greatest challenge of her life. "Mija, I always knew this day would come," he said when she explained where she was going. "Your grandmother had a dream about you before you were born. She saw you wearing a uniform, standing on a beach, surrounded by warriors. I never understood what it meant until now." "I'm scared, abuelo," Sarah admitted. "What if I'm not strong enough?" "Strength isn't about how much you can lift or how fast you can run," he replied. "It's about how much you can endure and still keep fighting. You have that strength, Mija. You've had it since you were a little girl who wouldn't quit even when everyone told her she was trying to do something impossible." Sarah arrived at Naval Special Warfare Center, Coronado, on a Sunday evening. The base sat on the Pacific Ocean, with pristine beaches that would soon become the site of unimaginable suffering. She checked into her barracks room, unpacked her gear, and tried to prepare mentally for what would begin at 500 the next morning. Her classmates in Class 347 were impressive specimens of human fitness and determination. Most were in their early 20s, though a few older candidates brought years of military experience from other special operations units. They came from every background imaginable: former football players, marathon runners, martial arts experts, and career military personnel. Sarah kept to herself initially, focusing on her own preparation rather than trying to integrate socially. She knew she would be evaluated not just on her own performance, but on how she affected unit cohesion and morale. The first day of pre-Bud S began with physical screening tests that would determine which candidates could proceed to actual Bud S training. Sarah stood in formation with 57 other hopefuls as the instructors explained the standards. "You will complete a 500-yard swim in 12.5 minutes or less," announced Instructor Davis, a SEAL with 15 years of experience. "Followed by 50 push-ups in 2 minutes, 50 sit-ups in 2 minutes, 10 pull-ups with no time limit, and a 1.5-mile run in 10.5 minutes. The swimming portion took place in the Pacific Ocean, with candidates wearing only swimsuits and goggles. The water was cold enough to cause hypothermia in extended exposure, and the surf created additional challenges. Sarah had trained extensively for this moment, spending every available hour in pools and open water. She completed the swim in 11 minutes and 40 seconds, placing her in the top quarter of performers. Several candidates had already failed, unable to meet the time standard even on this initial screening. The calisthenics portion tested muscular endurance under stress. Sarah's years of functional fitness training paid off as she completed 50 push-ups with time to spare. The sit-ups were more challenging, requiring her to pace herself carefully to avoid muscle failure before reaching the minimum standard. Pull-ups had always been Sarah's strongest event. While several larger candidates struggled to complete the minimum 10 repetitions, she finished 15 before dropping from the bar. The watching instructors noted her performance on their evaluation sheets. The final event was the 1.5-mile run on soft sand. Sarah had trained for this specifically, knowing that beach running required different techniques than road running. She maintained a steady pace, finishing in 10 minutes and 8 seconds. When the scores were announced, 12 candidates had failed to meet minimum standards and were removed from the program. Sarah had not only passed every event, but had performed in the top 15% of the remaining class. Outstanding first day, Instructor Davis announced to the survivors. But this was the easy part. Tomorrow we begin teaching you what it actually takes to become a SEAL. The next 8 weeks of pre-Bud S training were designed to prepare candidates for the legendary brutality of actual Bud S. The days began before dawn with physical training that seemed designed to break the human body. Running, swimming, calisthenics, and obstacle courses under increasingly challenging conditions. Sarah excelled in most events, but she faced unique challenges that her male classmates didn't encounter. Her smaller frame made certain obstacles more difficult, requiring her to develop techniques that compensated for her physical limitations. She spent extra hours after official training, working with instructors who helped her master rope climbing, wall scaling, and heavy equipment handling. The psychological pressure was equally intense. Instructors constantly reminded candidates that they could quit at any time simply by walking to the bell mounted near the training area and ringing it 3 times. Every day, more students chose that option, unable to handle the stress and pain. "Ring the bell, Martinez," Instructor Davis would shout during particularly difficult evolutions. "You're holding back the entire class. Do everyone a favor and quit now." Sarah never responded to the harassment, focusing entirely on completing whatever task was assigned. She knew the instructors were testing her mental resilience as much as her physical capabilities. Every challenge was designed to identify candidates who would fold under pressure. By the end of pre-Bud S, the class had shrunk from 45 survivors to 31 candidates. Sarah remained among them, having proven she could meet every standard demanded of prospective SEALs. But she knew the real test was just beginning. The graduation ceremony for pre-Bud S was attended by SEAL team leaders and senior enlisted personnel who evaluated the surviving candidates. Sarah stood at attention as Admiral Hawkins presented her with the certificate that qualified her to begin basic underwater demolition SEAL training. "You've proven you belong here, Martinez," the Admiral said quietly. "But Bud S will test everything you think you know about yourself." That evening, Sarah called her grandfather from a payphone near the beach. "How are you feeling, Mija?" he asked. "Like I'm about to jump off a cliff," she replied honestly. "Good," he said. "That means you understand what you're facing. Remember, courage isn't the absence of fear. It's acting despite the fear." 3 days later, Sarah stood in formation with 30 other candidates as Bud S Class 347 officially began. The instructors who had seemed harsh during pre-Bud S were replaced by legends of naval special warfare, men whose reputations for toughness were known throughout the military. The head instructor, Master Chief Anderson, addressed the class with words that would haunt Sarah's dreams for months to come. "Gentlemen and lady," he said, his eyes finding Sarah in the formation, "welcome to the beginning of the most difficult 6 months of your lives. Most of you will quit. Those who don't quit will wish they had. But the few who survive will earn the right to call themselves SEALs." Sarah felt her grandfather's compass in her pocket and silently promised herself that she would be among those few, no matter what it cost her. The first phase of Bud S training lasted 8 weeks and was designed to eliminate candidates who lacked the physical and mental toughness required for special operations. Sarah quickly learned that pre-Bud S had only been a preview of the punishment her body was about to endure. Each day began at 500 with physical training on the beach. The instructors, known as the brown shirts for their distinctive uniforms, seemed to take particular pleasure in creating innovative forms of suffering. Log PT involved teams of students carrying 300-pound telephone poles through surf and sand while performing various exercises. Sarah's team quickly learned to compensate for her smaller size, positioning her where she could contribute most effectively. "Martinez, you're dragging down your boat crew," Instructor Williams shouted during a particularly brutal log carry. "Maybe you should ring the bell and let your teammates succeed without you." Sarah gritted her teeth and pushed harder, refusing to give the instructors any excuse to single her out further. Her teammates, initially skeptical about training alongside a woman, began to respect her determination. She might be smaller, but she never quit trying. The obstacle course became Sarah's proving ground. The course featured walls, ropes, cargo nets, and other challenges designed to test every aspect of physical fitness. Sarah's smaller frame actually provided advantages on certain obstacles, allowing her to move more efficiently through confined spaces and requiring less upper body strength for some climbing tasks. But the most feared obstacle was the slide for life, a rope stretched between two towers over a pool of muddy water. Students had to traverse the rope using only their hands and arms, with failure resulting in an icy plunge that soaked uniforms and equipment. Sarah mastered the slide for life through pure technique and determination. While larger students relied on brute strength, she developed a rhythm that conserved energy while maintaining speed. Soon, she was completing the traverse faster than most of her male classmates. Swimming was another area where Sarah excelled. The daily swims in the Pacific Ocean grew progressively longer and more challenging, with students wearing boots and uniforms that created significant drag. Sarah's years of swimming training paid dividends as she consistently finished in the top group. But it was during the dreaded surf torture that Sarah truly proved herself to her classmates. The evolution required students to lie in the frigid Pacific surf while waves crashed over them for up to an hour. The water temperature was cold enough to cause hypothermia, and the constant pounding of waves made it difficult to breathe or maintain body position. During one particularly brutal session, a classmate named Johnson began showing signs of severe hypothermia. His lips were blue, and he was shivering uncontrollably. The instructors, testing his mental toughness, ignored his obvious distress. Sarah was lying next to Johnson in the surf line. Against regulations, she shifted her position to share body heat with him, helping him maintain core temperature. She knew the instructors would punish her if they noticed, but she couldn't watch a teammate suffer when she could help. Instructor Williams spotted the violation immediately. "Martinez, what do you think you're doing?" "Ensuring my teammate's safety, Instructor Williams," Sarah replied, continuing to share warmth with Johnson. "That's not your job. Your job is to focus on your own performance." "With respect, Instructor, my job is to ensure mission success. A hypothermic teammate compromises the entire unit." Williams studied her for a long moment, then moved on without ordering her to stop. Later, Johnson would tell other classmates that Sarah had probably saved his life during that evolution. The academic portion of first phase tested candidates' ability to learn complex material while under extreme physical stress. Students attended classes on maritime operations, navigation, weapon systems, and demolitions while exhausted from constant physical training. Sarah thrived in the academic environment despite her fatigue. Her intelligence background gave her advantages in subjects like communications and navigation, and she often helped struggling classmates during study periods. The instructors noticed her willingness to assist others, marking it as a positive leadership indicator. But the ultimate test of first phase was Hell Week, 5.5 days of continuous training with a total of only 4 hours of sleep. The evolution was designed to identify candidates who could function effectively under extreme stress and sleep deprivation. Hell Week began on Sunday night with a simulated enemy attack on the barracks. Students were roused from sleep by explosions, smoke, and instructors wearing enemy uniforms. The chaos was immediate and overwhelming, designed to disorient candidates and test their ability to respond under pressure. Sarah and her teammates were forced to low-crawl through mud while machine gun fire, blanks, erupted overhead. Smoke grenades created a fog of war that made it impossible to see more than a few feet ahead. The instructors shouted contradictory orders, adding to the confusion. The first casualty of Hell Week came during this opening evolution. A candidate named Peterson panicked during the simulated attack and had to be removed by medical personnel. The class was down to 28 members before the first night ended. The next 5 days blurred together in a haze of exhaustion, cold, and constant physical challenges. Students were required to complete evolutions ranging from ocean swims to long-distance runs, all while carrying heavy equipment and functioning on minimal sleep. During the famous, around the world, evolution, teams had to carry inflatable boats on their heads while running a course that circumnavigated the base. The boats weighed over 200 pounds and had to be carried in perfect synchronization, with the team running in step to prevent the boat from shifting. Sarah's boat crew struggled initially, as her shorter height made it difficult to maintain proper carrying position. But the team developed techniques that utilized her endurance and determination rather than just her physical size. She became the crew's motivator, pushing them forward when exhaustion threatened to break their unity. By Wednesday of Hell Week, several more candidates had quit. The combination of sleep deprivation, cold exposure, and constant physical stress was breaking down even the most determined students. Sarah was running on pure willpower, her body pushed beyond any limits she had previously experienced. The steel pier evolution tested candidates' ability to function in frigid water for extended periods. Teams had to swim to a pier in the harbor, complete various tasks underwater, and return to shore. The water was cold enough that several students required medical attention for hypothermia. Sarah's team was assigned to retrieve simulated demolition charges from beneath the pier structure. The task required swimming underwater in near-zero visibility while managing equipment and coordinating with teammates. Sarah's smaller lung capacity initially seemed like a disadvantage, but her efficiency underwater allowed her to complete multiple dives while larger teammates struggled. During one dive, Sarah's teammate Rodriguez became disoriented in the murky water beneath the pier. She could see him struggling to find the surface, his movements becoming increasingly panicked. Without hesitation, Sarah swam to him and guided him to safety, sharing her remaining air until they both surfaced. "Martinez saved my life down there," Rodriguez told the instructors during the post-evolution debrief. "She stayed calm when I lost it and got me out of trouble." Thursday night brought the most challenging evolution of Hell Week, the night ops exercise. Teams were required to navigate several miles along the beach in complete darkness, locate hidden objectives, and complete mission-specific tasks. The exercise tested not just physical endurance, but also navigation skills and team coordination. Sarah's team was assigned to locate and disable a simulated enemy communications site. The target was hidden among sand dunes several miles from the starting point, and teams had only basic navigation equipment to find it. Sarah took the lead on navigation, using skills she had learned from her grandfather during childhood hunting trips. She guided her team through the darkness using dead reckoning and terrain association, avoiding several false objectives designed to mislead exhausted students. When they located the target, Sarah used her intelligence background to quickly identify the correct components to disable. While other teams struggled with the technical aspects of the mission, her team completed their objectives and returned to base ahead of schedule. Friday morning of Hell Week brought the final major evolution, the demo pit exercise. Students were required to work with explosives while under extreme stress and fatigue. The margin for error was 0, as any mistake could result in serious injury or death. Sarah's hands were steady despite her exhaustion as she prepared charges and connected firing systems. Her attention to detail, honed through years of precision shooting and technical training, served her well in the high-stakes environment. When Hell Week finally ended Friday afternoon, only 21 candidates remained from the original class of 31. Sarah stood among the survivors, too exhausted to feel triumph, but deeply satisfied that she had proven herself capable of enduring anything the instructors could devise. Master Chief Anderson addressed the surviving class members individually, offering brief comments on their performance during the week. When he reached Sarah, he paused for a long moment before speaking. "Martinez, you've exceeded every expectation," he said quietly. "Your teammates trust you, you perform under pressure, and you never quit. That's what we're looking for in a SEAL." But Sarah knew that Hell Week was only the beginning. 2 more phases of training awaited, each with their own unique challenges and opportunities for failure. She had proven she could endure, but now she would need to demonstrate the technical skills and tactical knowledge required of special operations warriors. As she cleaned her gear that evening, Sarah found her grandfather's compass and held it in her tired hands. The needle pointed steadily north, just as it had throughout the chaos and confusion of the past week. She thought about his words, "True north isn't always the easy direction." She had chosen the hardest possible path, but she was still moving toward her goal. The second phase of Bud-S training shifted focus from pure physical endurance to combat diving and underwater operations. Sarah and the 20 remaining classmates moved to a new facility where they would learn the specialized skills that set SEALs apart from other special operations forces. Combat diving was perhaps the most technically demanding aspect of SEAL training. Students learned to use closed-circuit rebreathers that produced no bubbles, allowing for covert underwater infiltration. The equipment was complex and unforgiving, with any malfunction potentially fatal in operational conditions. Sarah's first experience with the Draeger rebreather system was both exhilarating and terrifying. The device recycled her exhaled breath through a chemical scrubber that removed carbon dioxide, but the process required constant monitoring and adjustment. Too much oxygen could cause convulsions, while too little would result in unconsciousness. Instructor Martinez, no relation to Sarah, was a master diver with 22 years of experience in underwater operations. He had survived equipment failures, enemy attacks, and ocean conditions that would challenge experienced commercial divers. His standards were absolute, and his patience was limited. "The ocean doesn't care about your feelings," he told the class during their first briefing. "Equipment failures happen at the worst possible moments. Your ability to problem-solve underwater will determine whether you complete the mission or become a casualty." The training pool at the Naval Special Warfare Center was 50 feet deep and designed to simulate every possible diving emergency. Students practiced equipment failures, buddy breathing, and navigation while maintaining perfect buoyancy control. The slightest mistake could result in a failed evolution and eventual dismissal from training. Sarah's background in swimming gave her natural comfort in the water, but diving with closed-circuit gear required completely different skills. She had to learn to breathe slowly and steadily, monitor her gas mixture constantly, and navigate using only compass bearings and elapsed time. The first major challenge was the pool competency test, an evolution designed to evaluate students' ability to handle life-threatening equipment emergencies underwater. Instructors would randomly attack students while they were submerged, removing their masks, tangling their breathing tubes, and creating equipment malfunctions they had to resolve while maintaining depth. Sarah's pool comp began normally with a simple underwater navigation exercise. She was swimming at 25 feet depth when Instructor Martinez appeared behind her and ripped the breathing tube from her rebreather. Without surface air, she had perhaps 30 seconds before hypoxia would impair her judgment. Following her training, Sarah immediately switched to her backup air supply while diagnosing the problem with her primary system. The instructor had not only disconnected the breathing tube, but had also turned off her gas flow, creating multiple failures simultaneously. While maintaining neutral buoyancy and proper depth, Sarah methodically addressed each problem. She reconnected the breathing tube, restored gas flow, and purged the system of contaminated gas. The entire process took less than 2 minutes, but it felt like an eternity while operating on backup air. "Outstanding emergency response," Instructor Martinez told her after the evolution. "But that was the easy version. Tomorrow we make it harder." The advanced diving phases tested students' ability to operate in zero-visibility conditions that simulated real-world operational environments. Sarah and her dive buddy, a former Marine named Thompson, were assigned to locate and recover simulated intelligence materials from the bottom of the harbor. The water visibility was less than 2 feet, reduced by silt and algae that made navigation extremely challenging. Sarah and Thompson had to swim nearly a quarter-mile underwater, locate specific targets using only compass bearings and elapsed time, and return to base without surfacing. Halfway through the dive, Thompson's rebreather began malfunctioning, producing bubbles that would compromise their stealth in operational conditions. Sarah immediately recognized the problem and signaled for him to switch to buddy breathing procedures. Sharing a single air supply between 2 divers was one of the most challenging skills in combat diving. Sarah and Thompson had to coordinate their breathing, maintain formation, and continue the mission while operating on half their normal air reserves. They located the target materials successfully and began their return navigation. But with reduced air supplies and the need to surface frequently for Thompson's emergency breathing, they were behind schedule and approaching their safety limits. Sarah made a tactical decision that demonstrated the judgment instructors were looking for in future SEALs. Rather than risk both divers by continuing underwater, she surfaced Thompson and signaled for emergency extraction while she completed the mission alone. Swimming the remaining distance solo with full equipment, Sarah recovered all assigned materials and returned to base within the time parameters. Thompson was safely extracted by support boats, and the mission was completed without compromising either diver's safety. Excellent tactical decision-making, Instructor Martinez noted in Sarah's evaluation. You prioritized mission success while ensuring team member safety. That's the kind of judgment we need in operational leaders. The third and final phase of Bud-S focused on land warfare and demolitions training. Students learned advanced weapons systems, small unit tactics, and explosive ordnance handling. This phase would determine which candidates possess the technical skills and tactical knowledge required for special operations missions. The demolitions training took place at a remote facility where students learned to use military explosives under realistic conditions. Sarah's attention to detail and steady hands made her a natural at the precise work required for explosive ordnance preparation. She excelled at calculating explosive charges needed for specific targets, understanding blast patterns and safety requirements. Her intelligence background helped her grasp the tactical applications of demolitions in various mission scenarios. During the final exercise of demolitions training, Sarah's team was assigned to destroy a simulated enemy bridge using plastic explosives. The task required precise placement of charges, careful timing of detonation sequences, and coordination with supporting elements. Sarah served as team leader for the mission, responsible for planning the operation and ensuring its successful execution. She studied the target structure, calculated the required explosive charges, and developed a timeline that would maximize destruction while minimizing risk to her team. The mission went perfectly. Sarah's charges detonated in sequence, bringing down the target bridge completely while her team maintained safe distances. The instructors rated her performance as exemplary, nodding her leadership abilities and technical competence. The final weeks of Bud-S included comprehensive testing of all skills learned during the 6-month program. Students faced written examinations, practical evaluations, and leadership assessments that determined their fitness for assignment to SEAL teams. Sarah approached these final tests with confidence earned through months of proving herself under the most challenging conditions imaginable. She had not only survived every phase of training, but had excelled in areas that would make her valuable to operational teams. The graduation ceremony for Bud-S Class 347 was held on a Friday afternoon with families and senior Naval Special Warfare personnel in attendance. Of the original 58 candidates who had begun pre-Bud-S training, only 19 had survived to graduation. Sarah stood in formation wearing her dress uniform, finally able to believe that she had achieved her dream. When Admiral Hawkins pinned the SEAL trident to her uniform, Sarah thought about her grandfather and all the people who had supported her journey. "You've made history today, Martinez," Admiral Hawkins said quietly. "But more importantly, you've proven that excellence knows no boundaries. The teams are lucky to have you." After the ceremony, Sarah called her grandfather from a payphone near the beach where she had endured so much suffering and discovered so much about herself. "Mija, I watched the ceremony on television," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Your grandmother would have been so proud. You did something everyone said was impossible. I had good teachers, abuelo. You showed me that the only limits are the ones we accept." That evening, Sarah walked alone on the beach where her transformation from intelligence analyst to naval special warfare operator had taken place. The waves crashed steadily against the shore, the same Pacific surf that had nearly broken her during Hell Week. She pulled her grandfather's compass from her pocket and watched the needle point steadily north. The bearing was clear and unwavering, just as her purpose had become over the months of training. She had found her true north, and it had led her exactly where she belonged. 2 weeks later, Sarah received her first operational assignment with SEAL Team 3. She would deploy to Afghanistan as part of a joint special operations task force conducting direct action missions against high-value targets. Her dream of serving as a SEAL warrior was finally becoming reality. But as she prepared her gear for deployment, Sarah knew that earning the trident had been only the beginning. The real test would come in combat, where her training would be validated under the ultimate pressure of life-and-death operations. She was ready for that test. 6 months of Bud S had proven that she could endure anything and excel under conditions that broke other people. She had earned her place among the most elite warriors in the world through demonstrated competence rather than lowered standards. The teenage girl who had dreamed of becoming a SEAL while firing perfect shots on her grandfather's ranch had grown into a woman capable of achieving the impossible. She had shown that barriers existed only until someone had the courage and determination to break through them. Sarah Martinez had become the first woman to complete SEAL training, not because standards had been changed for her, but because she had risen to meet the highest standards in military service. Her 15 perfect shots at the qualification range had been only the beginning of a journey that proved excellence transcends all artificial limitations. The trident on her uniform represented more than personal achievement. It symbolized the opening of doors for future generations of women who would follow her path into naval special warfare. She had become living proof that courage, competence, and determination matter more than gender when defending the nation. As she boarded the transport aircraft for her first deployment, Sarah carried her grandfather's compass and the knowledge that she had found her true purpose. The girl who had been told her dreams were impossible had become the woman who made them reality through 15 perfect shots and the courage to never give up.